On the planet Earth, there's 195 different countries. Of those 195, 36 are considered first world or developed. Of those 36, only one does not provide universal health care for its people. As most of you know, that country, of course, is the United States. In this video, we're going to be talking about the 8 reasons why exactly that is and why it's probably not changing anytime soon. I'm Tricon, and this is Unpopular Facts. Number one is going to be the health insurance industry. They're the middleman. Okay, they're the ones standing in between you and your doctor. They're the ones standing in between you and the surgery that you need, the drugs that you need, the therapy that you need. They are the middleman. And like any other kind of business, when you cut out the middleman, things get a whole lot less complicated. They get a whole lot cheaper, and generally they go a whole lot smoother. So 9 times out of 10, the health insurance industry is the middleman when we talk about getting care to the kind of care that you need. Okay, oftentimes they say, oh, we won't pay for this and we won't pay for that. So they're the ones standing in the way, and honestly they should not even exist. In other countries they don't exist. Now, I'm not saying insurance doesn't exist, but health insurance itself does not exist in other countries, especially developed countries. And this is the reason why it gets complicated with them. Okay, and they're really the primary reason that's holding us back from this. I mean, because there's billions of dollars in being a health insurance company. Okay, you cover who you want to. You can drop people anytime you want to. So honestly, they should not even exist. And they're the primary reason that they're one of the reasons why that our health insurance, our healthcare industry right now, it's like we're not about making everybody as healthy as they can be. All right, we're about making as much money as we can. That's what healthcare is in the United States. It's not driven by, actual health and well-being of citizens. Okay, it's driven by profit. And the healthcare, the health insurance industry is the primary reason why that's the case. Okay, they don't want to go away. If you're the CEO or the owner of one of these companies, that's your livelihood. That's what's making you rich. So why would you want it to go away? So, big pharma, like that's what I'm going to get into next. Big pharma is still going to exist, whether health insurance exists or not. So these guys are the primary culprits. I mean, they're involved in media outlets, wherever the case may be. They're going to make sure they fill the pockets of whoever they need to fill to make sure that they exist. Health insurance industry, number one. Number two is going to be big pharma, or the big drug companies that exist. Okay, they're the ones standing in the way between you and the drugs that you need, and in a lot of cases, life-saving drugs that you need. Okay, they fix prices. Just simply go across the border to Canada or go to Europe and ask people what they pay for a bottle of insulin. Ask people, well, it's going to be nothing, but because healthcare is free over there. But you ask people that know the price of insulin or the price of the antibiotics. Okay, when you compare them to the prices here in the U.S., they're a lot of times 20 times higher, 30 times higher. And that's because drug companies have gotten together and fixed prices. Okay, they can bribe they bribe the FDA through donations and crap like that. I mean, it's just one big mess. Okay, but big pharma plays a role in this too. Not as much as the health insurance industry because they're the middleman, but they play a role in this too because they really don't want to do business with the government. And if we went to universal health care, of course they would have to. They'd have to, and and then fair market value would obviously being played. They couldn't go 20 or 30 times higher than what market value is. Okay, so big pharma plays a role in that. And that, they would lose money. They probably wouldn't go out of business the same way that health insurance companies would, but they would lose money. That's less money in their pockets. Number 3 is going to be propaganda. Mainstream media outlets, they're such a powerful tool in the way that they can have somebody thinking negatively about something that would impact their lives positively. And they're owned and operated by the elite, the out of touch elite. Of course, these people, I don't think it takes a genius to know that, big pharma and health insurance companies probably pump dollars into these media outlets to make sure they push a narrative that positively affects them. There was a video I watched on YouTube one time. It was in the UK, and they were asking random people how much they thought certain medications were, how much they thought a C-section was, and they were all shocked about how much Americans were paying for these procedures, for these medications. And Americans, it's like, and one of the things that they use to corrupt people's minds is Venezuela. Anytime they bring up universal health care, they say, oh, what, do you want to end up like Venezuela? And they don't bring up the fact that the other 35 developed nations have universal health care. Instead, they scare you with Venezuela. That's propaganda. Leaving out facts and focusing on the negative. Focus on a narco-ran state. Okay? And say, oh, you want Medicare for all? Oh, you must want to turn into Venezuela. So, propaganda is a powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing. And to someone who's uninformed, like the average American, it works more than 40 hours a week. Has kids. So you don't have time to decipher, okay, is this real news? Though this can't be real. So you just watch the news, and whatever the news tells you, you assume to be true. Well, not to say it's not true. Venezuela is in bad shape, so obviously their healthcare system is obviously going to be in bad shape. But they don't bring up Denmark and Finland, who have universal healthcare. Canada, who has universal healthcare, and they don't bring up the fact that we're 37th in healthcare. Just a lot of, but propaganda does that. A lot of Americans don't know that, but that's propaganda, and that's why that plays a huge role and why we don't have universal health care. Number 4 is going to be Republicans. By nature, Republicans are for big business and less government. Something like universal health care, by default, is going to be something they're not for, because that would make the government bigger. That would require government being more involved in business. It's one of those things where it blows my mind, because healthcare and saving lives, we're supposed to, healthcare should, the goal of healthcare should be saving as many lives as possible, not making as much money as possible. But that's the Republican way. The economy and profit, and I'm not for doctors working. I'm a healthcare worker. Okay, I'm not for people being underpaid, but when money is the primary goal, I think we sell ourselves short, and Republicans play a role in that. Okay, they're primarily the ones, especially the guys on the right, the right wingers. They always bring up Venezuela. Okay, when they say anything about Medicare for all, universal health care, it's always Venezuela, and that's part of that propaganda. It all kind of ties into the same thing, but these individuals have their own agenda. Big Pharma funds a lot of Republican candidates who are running for office. Okay, Big Pharma, health insurance companies, they fund a lot of these politicians, especially on the right. So Republicans, number 4. Number 5 is gonna be Democrats. And I know you're wondering, okay, yeah, you got me there. So Republicans or Democrats, they're in bed together, okay? Um, they both take money from huge corporations. They both take money from for-profit health insurance companies. They're all in the same boat. Only Democrats, they lie to you. Republicans will tell you straight up, yeah, I'm not for that. Okay, they'll tell you kind of straight up. Okay, but the Democrats, they'll act like they have people's best interests at heart, but like I said, they take money from these people. So when they get in office, do you think that they're going to enact policies that change the status quo? No, they're not. So they take money from these people. Joe Biden takes money from for-profit health insurance companies. Okay, so he, by default, the same people that funded his campaign, he simply cannot, he just can't do anything that helps the people. And I'm not trying to make this video too political, but that's just the truth here. Both Republicans and Democrats are part of the reason why the American people don't have universal health care coverage. Okay, this is something, universal health care is something that polled at 75% at one point, but then they reworded it and also threw in something about private insurance and whether you need to have an option or not, and then it dropped down to just 60%. Okay, when they worded it different. But Americans, when they read it in definition, they say, yeah, that's what we should want. Okay, and you look at it and you say, well, why can't it be treated at like a public good? Okay, like the police. Nobody has their own private police insurance where, okay, if somebody's breaking in their house, they got to call the insurance. You get what I'm saying? So why not treat it like a fire? If you have a fire, if your house is burning, you call 911 and the fire department arrives. You don't have to pay them any money. They just put out the fire. Okay, and we all pay our taxes so we can have the fire department. Okay, same thing with police. Somebody come to rob you, somebody could break into your house, whatever the case may be. You call the police, they arrive. Okay, you don't have to pay any money for that. It's something that we pay for. Why can't we treat healthcare the same way as a public good? All right, that all ties into propaganda. Okay, but the Democrats play a huge role in this. Number 6, progressives. Now, most progressives are for universal health care. Okay, but progressives fight amongst each other. They fight amongst each other, and the way they fight amongst each other is the way often Democrats and Republicans fight amongst each other, and then it leads to them not being able to get anything done for the American people. Why progressives don't support each other at times baffles me when they're for the same things, but because of this, people get let down. Okay, people get voted in office that don't need to be voted in office. Okay, when you talk about the common man, this is just fact. Okay, the common everyday American, the policies that progressives are for, by and large, they coincide with helping the common man. I'm talking about your average American. Progressives play a role in this too, because if they got together, I think there would be more success in getting some of these policies passed, like universal health care. So, yep, they play a role in this too. Number 7 is going to be race. You may ask, well, how does race play a role in this? Race does play a huge role in this when you really dive into it and look at it. One of the things I looked at before making this video is I looked at the demographics of all the other countries that did provide universal health care for its people. And one of the things I noticed is that none of the other countries were as racially diverse as the United States of America. And none of those countries had the same history of racial tensions and issues and slavery as the United States of America. So, you may ask, how does that correlate with universal health care? Well, if everybody in the United States looked the same, if everybody in the U.S. was white, I do believe that we'd have universal health care. if everybody in the U.S. was white. Finland, Denmark, all 99% of the people there are white. So universal healthcare, if we enacted it today, if it became a thing, if all big pharma and all these agencies said, you know what, let's just do it. If we did it today, it would drastically improve the lives of Hispanics and blacks. And I'm not saying that people sit around a round table and say, oh no, we can't have universal health care because it'll improve the lives of minorities. That's not what I'm saying. I know money is the primary reason why, but that's part of it. If America was 100% white and there were 100,000 people dying every year from not having coverage or not having enough coverage, I think there'd be more of a sense of urgency about trying to get people health care. When you think about the civil rights movement, one of the things that people don't talk about is that at first it started out as it was just all black people. When they were marching the streets and holding their signs and stuff, and of course the counter protesters were beating them up upside the head. I'm talking about beating them bloody. It really didn't get any news coverage. No one really cared. But then when white students started walking with black people, when white students started helping people register to vote, and they were getting knocked upside the head, murdered and killed, that's when the federal government stepped in. Okay, it's unpopular. People like to think, well, black people did it on their own. No, there were good white people that had to step in, and when they did, the federal government stepped in. Okay, so this country reacts to white suffering different than black suffering, and so if there were 100,000 whites and just all whites dying of not having healthcare coverage, I think this country would act quicker. I think they'd put their differences aside a lot more swiftly to ensure that more Americans had universal health care. Number 8 is going to be the American people. The American people allow Democrats, Republicans, hell, even progressives. They allow propaganda. They allow all those things to divide us. We do. We allow all those things to divide us. Whether it's left wing or right wing. Most of us look at this. You talk to people on the right. I'm talking about the common man, obviously. Not amongst the elite left or right. I'm talking about the average person who votes Republican and the average person who votes Democrat. They can sit down and say, you know what? Yeah, I think, people study this and say it would be what's best. Oh, well, why aren't we doing it? People can come together and make this happen. Whether it's race, whether it's political affiliation, we allow them to divide us. We allow the mainstream media to divide us. So the American people, I know I said the health insurance company, they're the number one reason why we don't have universal coverage. But I'm going to have to say it's the American people. We poll at 75%. When you ask all Americans if this is what they would prefer, and 75 say yes, okay, that shows we're united. We're united in theory. It's time that, when people vote against their interests, it's propaganda. But when people look at people dying because they don't have health insurance, it's something else. Whatever it is, it lies within you, and that's part of it, okay? So the American people, number 10. If you made it to the end of this video, type I made it in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Only takes 2 seconds, and it helps out more than you know. This is Tricon, Unpopular Facts. Till next time.